Leaving a relationship is hard, but leaving when money is involved, that's a completely different kind of fear. Because sometimes the thing keeping someone in a relationship isn't love. It isn't loyalty, it's financial survival. You start thinking things like, if I leave, will he empty the bank account? What happens to the house? What if he ruins my credit out of spite? How will I even afford to start over? And that fear keeps people stuck far longer than they should be. But here's the truth, most people only realize after it's too late. When relationships end badly, money often becomes the weapon. And if you're not prepared, the financial damage can last for years. So the real question isn't just how to leave, it's how to leave without letting him destroy your financial future. And that starts long before the day you walk out the door. The first mistake people make. Most people think the breakup is the moment everything changes. But financially, the damage usually starts before the separation. Because in many relationships, one person slowly becomes the financial gatekeeper. Maybe he manages the accounts, maybe he handles the bills, maybe he says things like, "I'll take care of the money stuff." At first it feels convenient, but over time something dangerous happens. You stop knowing what's actually happening financially. You don't know how much debt exists. You don't know where the savings are. You don't know whose name is on what. And when you decide to leave, you realize you're walking away from a financial system you don't fully understand. That's when panic sets in. So before anything else, the first step is simple. You need visibility. Step 1. See the whole financial picture. Before you make any big move, you need to know exactly what exists. Not what you think exists, what actually exists. That means quietly gathering information like bank accounts, credit cards, loans, mortgage details, retirement accounts, investments, insurance policies. Because if things turn hostile, information becomes power, and the person who controls the information usually controls the outcome. You don't need to confront him. You don't need to announce anything, but you do need copies of statements, records, and documents stored somewhere safe. Think of this as building your financial map before you start the journey out. The financial identity problem. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. Many partners realize during a breakup that they don't actually have a financial identity anymore. Everything is joint. Joint accounts, joint credit cards, joint loans, which means when things go bad, access disappears instantly. Sometimes accounts get drained, sometimes they get frozen. Sometimes one person locks the other out entirely. That's why one of the most important moves you can make is this. Create financial space before the separation. Open a bank account in your name only. If you don't already have one, apply for a credit card in your own name. Not because you're hiding money, but because you're protecting access. Because the moment things become emotional, financial behavior can become unpredictable. And having your own financial foundation gives you breathing room. The emergency fund that buys freedom. Let's talk about something practical. Leaving costs money. More money than most people expect. Deposits for housing, legal consultations, moving costs, unexpected expenses. And if you leave without financial cushion, panic decisions start happening. People move back into unhealthy situations because they can't afford independence. That's why even a small emergency fund can change everything. It doesn't have to be huge. What matters is that it exists. Because money doesn't just buy comfort, it buys options. And options are what make leaving possible. The credit trap. One of the ugliest financial weapons during a breakup is credit. Because credit damage lasts years. Sometimes a partner reacts emotionally and starts doing things like maxing out joint credit cards, stopping payments on shared loans, taking out debt tied to your name, and suddenly your credit score collapses, which makes it harder to rent housing, harder to get loans, harder to rebuild. So before things explode, check your credit report. Know what accounts exist in your name, and if possible, start separating yourself from joint credit lines. Because once the damage happens, fixing it takes a long time. Preventing it is much easier. The documentation advantage. Breakups can rewrite reality. People suddenly start saying things like, "That account was always mine. You never contributed to that. I don't know what you're talking about." And without records, it becomes one person's word against another's. That's why documentation matters. Save records of tax returns, bank statements, pay stubs, investment accounts, property ownership, loan balances. Not because you're preparing for war, but because if conflict happens, facts protect you. Memory doesn't. The emotional financial trap. One of the biggest mistakes people make during separation is emotional decision-making. You're tired, you're overwhelmed, you just want the situation to end. So, when someone says something like, "Just leave the house and we'll be done," you might agree, even if that house represents years of shared investment. Or when someone says, "Let's just split things quickly," you might accept terms that are financially unfair just to avoid conflict. But quick peace can create long-term regret. So slow down the financial decisions. Get advice. Talk to professionals if necessary. Because the agreements made during separation shape your future. Watching for financial retaliation. Here's something many people don't expect. Financial retaliation. Sometimes when a partner realizes the relationship is ending, they start moving assets. Selling things. Transferring money. Making large withdrawals. Not always out of strategy, sometimes just out of anger. That's why awareness matters. Keep an eye on joint accounts. Watch for unusual financial activity, because once assets disappear, recovering them can be complicated. Planning the exit, leaving doesn't have to happen overnight. In fact, the strongest exits are usually the ones that are planned. Think about questions like, where will you live? How will bills be handled during the transition? What happens with shared expenses? Even basic planning can turn a chaotic situation into a controlled one. Preparation reduces fear, and when fear goes down, better decisions happen. Rebuilding financial independence. Once you leave, the financial story doesn't end. It begins. You'll probably need to rebuild certain things. Savings, credit, a new financial structure that belongs entirely to you. At first, it might feel overwhelming, but something powerful happens during this stage. You realize something. You're no longer negotiating your financial life with someone else. You're building it on your own terms. And that changes everything. The fear that keeps people stuck. For many people, the real barrier to leaving isn't love, it's financial fear. Fear of instability, fear of starting over, fear of survival. But here's what many people discover after they leave. The financial chaos they imagined rarely happens the way they feared. Because preparation changes the outcome. Information changes the outcome. Financial independence changes the outcome. And once you understand how to protect yourself, the situation becomes manageable. The bottom line. Leaving a relationship where finances are intertwined is never easy. But it doesn't have to destroy your future. Protect yourself by understanding the financial landscape. Create your own accounts. Build a safety fund. Monitor your credit. Document everything. Plan your exit. Because financial independence isn't just about money, it's about freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from control, freedom to rebuild your life without someone holding your financial stability hostage. And the more prepared you are, the less power anyone else has over your future. If you found this video informative, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more content. Thank you.